Conyers.
Welcome to the Marshall News and Views Show. I'm Elaine Conyers, and I've got my guests today are with the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce. First of all, we've got Cal Brink over on my far left, who is the area director of the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, and I really stress area because that's something that has changed in the last few years, and we're very proud of that change. And he is also the area director of the Economic Development Organization. And then a newer member of our chamber here is Brad Gruat, who is the director of membership for the area Marshall Chamber of Commerce. We've talked about this before, how Chamber has changed over the last few years. It's become much, much more active and very strong entity in our community, and we can see how that has happened with all the economic development that we see, plus the increased membership in the chamber itself. So, Cal, why don't you start out and tell us what we know your background. Let's see what you got ahead in the future.
All right. Yeah, it's thanks for those nice comments too, Elaine. Well, we kind of think of the chamber really as always evolving. We don't want to get to a point where the chamber is now the way it's going to stay. So one of the things that's been very obvious over the last 7 years is we continue to add pieces to it. The Economic Development came into the scene 4 or 5 years ago. Convention Visitors Bureau came into the scene a year and a half ago. So now that's all under the chamber umbrella, still run somewhat independently, but managed and led through the chamber efforts. Right. So those synergies allow us to work together and get more for less money and do more with the money that we do bring in. So Brad was another new piece, as you mentioned, was working in some different chambers up in the Minneapolis area and the cities, and was able to bring some thoughts from there and some programs. So we'll talk about some of those a little bit later. Also, our fiscal ended a few weeks ago on September 30th. So, we're able to talk now about having another successful year. And we measure success really by a couple things. First, obviously, and important is the money that we bring in through revenue and through dues, and then non-dues revenue is kind of creates that bucket of money that we have to spend. Yeah. And so that's one thing we measure. Do we bring in more every year? And then the second thing that's probably even more important is what did we do with that money? How much membership value did we provide for those dollars? And we really take a hard look at that at our staff meetings is what did we do this month or what did we do this year that we didn't do the year before that our members could take advantage of. And we have members, quite honestly, that they want to pay their dues and just they know that we're doing work on behalf of them and that's all they want. And then we have other members that want to go to all the business after hours. They want to take part in coupon books and those kinds of things. So it's really, that's one of the benefits of membership is you can be as active as you want or as inactive as you want and still know that you're putting money in a good place for the community. Right.
And they're receiving benefits.
Yeah, so that's right. And so one of the pieces, and I'll have Brad talk about this now, is that he really has brought to us is the how to go out and find members and sell members and convince members, and he'll also touch on kind of how we rank in the state as far as that membership level. So it's best if he talks about that because he's really the professional at it.
Okay. Well, we want to hear about it.
All right. Membership right now for the Marshall Area Chamber is right around the 490 area.
Wow.
And that's pretty high for the size of Marshall, which has about 660 businesses or so. So having about 75% of the local businesses, that is really high. It's one of the most highest saturated chambers in the state of Minnesota.
That's something to be very proud of.
Absolutely, and we have about 60 businesses that are actually outside of Marshall, which again stresses that whole regional piece of it. So why are businesses join? Well, we have a huge amount of programming that members can come out, meet each other. This morning we just had a really good program called Let's Connect where you get to stand and do a verbal 1-minute commercial on your business in front of like 35 others. So it's a good visibility piece for your business. So we have, anywhere from 4 to 5 events every single month. But like Cal was saying, we are also the voice of business. So a lot of our members just join just to make sure that we have their back on whether it's at city council or in St. Paul or whatever the case is.
Well, that's great, really great.
When you mentioned, and I always like that you key on the area part, because that, of course, that is really important. And the model across the state now that people are starting to recognize is any model that tries to form partnerships with chambers and EDAs and CVBs, not only because you can save money, you can get, it just makes so much common sense. All of us take part in kind of the same. The chamber wants the community to grow. The EDA wants the community to grow.
Right.
The CVB tries to bring people in, so the community. So why not have all those people thinking under one roof?
That's right.
And the testament to have that working, not only Brad mentioned the fact that there's 60 or so members that are outside of Marshall, which means they also believe in the fact that Marshall has to be strong
Right.
for the outlying communities, Cottonwood, Tracy, Minneota, Ghent, and all those towns. For them to have success and have people live there and fill their houses, you have to have a successful Marshall.
That's
and we need those communities because they house our workforce.
That's right.
So it all kind of ties together. And another testament is just recently, even as recent as last week, we finalized the agreement with the city of Tracy to do their economic development as
Wow.
well. So
Yeah.
we've hired a person by the name of Tara Onken, lives in Ballatin,
Okay.
loves rural Minnesota, loves the Ballatin, Tracy, Marshall area, plans
Yeah.
on living here her whole life,
Yeah.
helps farm, does some real estate work, does some of the economic development for the city of Ballatin already. So that person will also be housed in the Marshall Chamber,
Oh,
as well
okay,
as have
right.
office
Okay.
space down in
That's
Tracy
great.
City Hall. So that just, again, kind of goes to show how we really believe in that whole piece.
Right.
To me, quite honestly, if I have a business that wants to relocate to southwest Minnesota, if they relocate to Tracy or Cottonwood or Ballatin or Marshall, it makes no difference to me. I mean, yeah, I love when they come to Marshall, but realistically, if there's a building that's they can more financially afford in Tracy or Ballatin or Cottonwood or Minneota or Ghent, that makes total sense.
sure.
And we know they're going to still spend money in Marshall.
That's right.
We know some will live in Marshall. We know some will live in Tracy. Some will live in Cottonwood. So, yeah, we're excited about that. That's going to start in a couple weeks.
Great.
She had to give notice, obviously, to her employers. But
Right.
so that's the most developing piece.
Right.
And then when we think about the future, which is what you kind of really asked about, is what's in it for the future. Again, it's evolving. One of the things some people know the story behind me being here. I was going to be here for 4 months as an interim. Have really, truthfully, I've just enjoyed it so much and really value what we're doing for the community and businesses. That it's now been 7 years.
Yes.
So as time goes on, the plan when I asked Brad to move here, and Brad's a native to here, so I didn't have to sell him on Marshall, was to start working into more of the things that I'm currently doing, and then I would lead the organization so that I can oversee EDA, the Chamber, CVB, the Tracy EDA, on a more limited basis as we go forward. So within the next months, we'll announce the fact that Brad will at some point become the director of the Marshall Chamber, so we'll be doing a lot of the activities that I've done the last 7 years. And so people will always say, well, why is Brad always with you, or why do we see you two together? Well, that's all by plan.
That's right,
It's
yeah.
really kind of a mentorship where he's watching what I do. I'm learning some things that we can do better. So I don't have any intentions of being gone.
I was going to say, don't tell us you're
But there
leaving.
is but more of a limited type of basis where I can do some of the other things that I do with Buffalo Farming and the shoe store and that kind of stuff.
That's right, yeah.
So that's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. Well, going back to this idea of the area chamber, I've lived in Marshall. I'm not even going to tell you. It's been a long time. And when I moved here, and for many, many years, there was a lot of jealousy amongst the communities around us that thought, oh, Marshall gets everything, or blah, blah, blah type of thing. And they didn't appreciate much of Marshall. And that attitude has really, really changed in the last few years. Now those communities recognize Marshall as a regional center, and they're very pleased with that and want to be a part of it. And part of that is because you kind of renamed the chamber and the EDA as Marshall area, and I can see such a difference. And in having that cooperation and working together is really so good, rather than stay away, type of thing. It's just we've seen a lot of change like that, and I think a lot of that happened because of your leadership, Cal, where you reached out to these communities, and like you say, some of them work in their community and live in Marshall, or really vice versa, where they live in the outskirts or in the other communities and then drive to Marshall. And I know you have mentioned this in the past, and I have seen it too, where you try to get on to the highways sometimes during the afternoon rush hour. Boy, it's like being in the city. You cannot get on, and then we don't have the lights to help us with that either. It's really something. And another thing that I just want to mention is that somebody criticized Marshall one time by saying, "Well, you don't even have a lake. How can you promote Marshall? You don't even have a lake." I said, "Cottonwood has a lake." And so, that's okay. It's near enough. You can if you want to live on the lake at Cottonwood, go right ahead.
Well, people forget that, and because there isn't a big lake right in Marshall, but there is. Cottonwood actually has a lot of recreation that goes on there. Lake Yankton or whatever, and Ballatin's another lake. 30 minutes away, you have
Lake Benton.
Lake Benton. 30 miles the other way, you have
Lake Sarah, Lake
Key Largo, and So there is that recreation, and we really try to explain to people that. And I'll use Brad as an example. Lived in Minneapolis and still loves the metro area, and always will. I mean, enjoyed the time he lived there. Came home for family reasons. Raising a family makes sense to do it in Marshall. And yet can still go to the cities or Sioux Falls for those kinds of things if you miss certain things about it, whether it's sporting events, big-time professional sporting events, or some other entity that they have in the cities that we don't. You can get there.
That's right.
It's a weekend trip, and you do that several times a year, and you kind of get the best of both worlds.
That's right.
And so that's kind of what we try to sell people on. And when you still have vacations, you're an airplane flight away from any place. We're fortunate to have a really nice regional airport for some of the businesses that fly in and out. That's a huge plus for us. But you mentioned traffic, and that's the other thing. We have a very, very active transportation committee, the Marshall Transportation Group within the chamber, and we have to continually strive to have better roads. Hopefully someday 4-lane between Sioux Falls and here. We're working on that. There's going to be a few passing lanes put in this next year that we got grant money for, thanks to our group. So, those are the kinds of things you have to do for the community.
That's
and
right.
I just was in another meeting today where we talked about young people and trying to keep young people here. We have a lot of people that graduate high school here and they go off to college somewhere else, or graduate college here and go off some.
Right.
We got to find ways that they understand that there's jobs in Marshall. There's, but that generation, whether it's 25, 35, 45-year-old people, they want more from a regional hub. They want new facilities. They want a great college football program that they can take part in. They want brand new hockey facilities and event center where they can go to concerts and go to different type of exhibition shows. And that's the kind of thing you continually have to do. And we get beat up over that, quite honestly, Lane. People, we don't need that. Why do we spend money? It's a waste of taxpayer money. And why are we paying an extra 0.5% sales tax? That's why you do it. Because some of us that are already lived where we don't have kids at home, we think a little bit differently, or some people think differently than you're raising 2 or 3 kids that are going to play sports or want to have good facilities to do whatever they like to do. You have to continually provide that. And
That's right.
Things like the bike trail going to Camden, I've heard people say that's the biggest waste of money the state's ever done. It's like, well, for families that like to do it, that thing, there's bikes on there all the time, and they're just finishing up the third leg now, which is the middle leg. So now we'll have continuous tar all the way from here to Camden and back, so you can take a 20-mile bike ride. Those are the kinds of things that communities that grow need to do.
That's right.
And, we constantly debate with everybody about why we're doing it, why are you doing this, why are you doing that. It's like, because we want to be here in 30 or 50 years and still be growing and not recognized as one of these communities that almost figured out how to do it.
Right, exactly. And I think we, looking at the people that we want to come back, well, Brad is a good example. He lived here, grew up here, but then you left for the Twin Cities, but you came back for family reasons, and, here, it's safe in Marshall for your children. Really safe. I mean, it's not 100% safe, I suppose, but, it's much safer than in the Twin Cities. And I'm sure that was part of your decision, too, that that's where you wanted to bring your children.
Oh, definitely. I think back at our house in Bloomington, and we always had to keep an eye on our kids when they were in the front yard. You just never knew. Now, not that I don't keep an eye on them, but they're a little bit more free. And,
sure.
I'm not nearly as concerned when they're out playing together. But absolutely, it's a great place to raise kids. And even from when I grew up here, there's just so many more opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, the college has changed in such a positive way. They have a brand new high school. The YMCA is in town.
Yep.
So there's a lot more opportunities for kids to have fun
Right.
in the area from when I grew up here in the 80s.
And I think another point too is that Marshall is, we're obviously building that sports arena, the regional sports arena, and sports is very, very important in people's lives. I have received some comments about, well, how come everything is sports? Why don't we have anything else? But I'm beginning to hear people say, well, Marshall is also doing cultural things, looking at our wall murals downtown, Mrs. Whitney that greets people as they come into town, and the work of MAFAC and SMOC, where they're bringing cultural events into the community. And one woman said to me one day, well, I think there's more to life than sports, and I'd like to see. Yeah, I agree we're going to have both. But yes, we certainly are going to. We're going to have that sports real soon, and we will add to the community through cultural events.
Well, and you have to keep in mind, and I totally understand those people that feel it. I mean, there's families that don't have kids in sports and that doesn't make. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I mean, they take part in other things, whether it be music or band.
Right.
The other thing we try to make sure everybody realizes when we went to work on the Red Baron Arena, as it's now called, which is 2 sheets of ice.
Yep.
So it's predominantly for ice sports. So hockey tournaments, hockey is one of the fastest growing. It's a big deal.
Yep.
So you have to pay attention to that. And teams in South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, they don't necessarily want to drive all the way to the cities to play in a quality facility. So we'll bring money from outside of the state as they stay in our hotels.
Exactly.
So I mean that's really. But then, what I always try to end that story with is that facility was built with other things in mind other than sports.
Oh, yeah.
So, the person that says, oh, why do we always worry about sports? Well, they're going to be able to go to a Runnings retail show in there where Runnings brings in all of their suppliers to demonstrate whether it's DeWalt, and I'm just making some of this stuff up because that's the kind of things we're envisioning. So you get to go to retail shows. You might get to go to a career show. There might be a home and garden show where all of the home and garden, or the Ace Hardwares and those people bring, like we typically had at the mall.
Yeah.
Those types of shows. There may be sewing shows. There may be, so we're going to use that facility all year long for people that aren't into sports.
Yeah, exactly.
And concerts would be another possibility there. Certain types of concerts will work better in that facility than they will in other ones. So we really do try to keep that in mind. And so I kind of like once in a while when people challenge that why is it, because it isn't only about sports.
Yeah.
I would seriously guesstimate there will be 10 to 12 events a year in that facility that people can go to that will not be anything about sports. So, that's a good thing to remember.
That's right.
And just things, again, like the bike trail, and now we have some go-karts, we have miniature golf. Those kinds of things, they bring people to town. They stay in our hotels when they're here for tournaments or for those kind of shows we just talked about. They want things to do while they're here.
Yep.
We know that facility they'll have a wow factor. When people walk in, they're not going to believe how nice it is.
Yeah.
But then they want to have a nice place to stay, and they want to have nice, unique places to eat, and they want to have recreation to do. So you got to think about that whole big picture when you're doing it.
That's right.
And I think of what we just completed. Sons of Summer was in August.
Yes.
We had Hopfest in September. Pursuit of Excellence just happened too.
Yeah.
All non-sporting events. So
a
lot of different areas, a lot of different events going on in town.
Exactly.
And speaking of events, we have a couple one big one. Brad, maybe you want to talk about Taste of Marshall. That'd be a
Yeah. The Chamber has one of our most fun events throughout the year. It's next Monday night, the 26th, 5 to 8 o'clock at the college. It's upper level conference center. It's $10 a ticket. If you haven't gotten your tickets, you can still register online on our website. But we are showcasing 19 restaurants next Monday night, and it gives the opportunity for the public, our members, to come in to do sample, go to 19 different restaurants and get the best of what they have to offer. There's a bar available as well, but last year we had about 300 people come, and last year it was actually in November. It was like the first crummy night of the year as far as weather goes. We have, next Monday is going to be a great night to come on out to see what we all have to offer for our restaurants. It's a good way for them to showcase what they have.
That's right. And I will warn the public, when you come to them, don't fill your plate up at the first place, because there's going to be 19 and you want to taste it all.
Yeah. Well, I'll just add to that, the vendors that are there, the people that are, they're cooking their products.
Yeah.
They don't pay to get into the show, but they have to spend money for the products.
Yeah.
There's nothing more than they love to have a packed house of people that want to try their food. And, they compete for most unique product, not just favorite product, best booth display, and then second place in some of the others. So they're there competing. So they're going to try. You'll want to get around. This year we've done something a little bit different. When you check in, you'll get a card that has 19 squares.
Oh.
And if you go to each booth, those get put into a drawing for Marshall gift checks.
Okay.
So it gives everybody a reason to go to every booth, just in fairness.
Yeah. That's
so that
great.
you get to. So again, you don't want to fill up at the first one,
right?
But you will have some favorite ones. I mean, you've been. I think you've been going ever since I've been here.
Yeah, I've been there every year.
That's just a great event.
Yeah, and then plus that you also use that opportunity to kind of give a yearly report on what's been going on with the chamber.
Our bylaws state that we have to have an annual meeting.
Yeah.
So we used to. It was always a week or two before or after the Taste of Marshall, and what we ended up finding is we were asking many of the same people to come to the same to come to our event 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So we thought, why not make it easy for everybody and combine at the annual meeting? I mean, I kind of don't like it. It wasn't an exciting event. I like to get up and talk about how much we've done and all those kinds of things. It's really, you have to have it based on our bylaws, but it's much nicer to have it in an exciting atmosphere. We give away 4 awards for Volunteer of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Business of the Year, and All-Star of the Year, which would be a person.
Yeah.
And it's nice when we give those awards away to have 300 people instead of 50 that we used to get to our annual meeting. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I mean, it's still, we'll take 15 minutes during that fun event, and it'll get a little bit serious when we can talk about the success and thank the people that got the awards. But it's nice to tie those into the same event.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, I'm sure you're enjoying this time here, Brad, in Marshall, and you've done such a successful job of bringing in so many members. That is really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, over the last year, I want to say we've probably brought on about 95 to 100 members and about a net of about 70. So it's been another good year, successful year of membership. And for those that are still interested, we have an orientation November 12th. It's a good opportunity for anybody that's interested to come and see what benefits and features that the chamber has to offer their business. So, and that can be found online as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then you do some membership events too, right, at the chamber, where you kind of talk about the goals and achievements, right?
Yeah, and that's the 101 program. That's the orientation program that I kind of just mentioned. But there's several other programs that there's either the Women's Connect, the Let's Connect, the Young Professionals group that meets monthly. I know that we have another event this upcoming Saturday. It's Give Back.
Yeah, not give to the max. It's a Marshall Downtown Business Association. For 1 week, you donate canned goods for the food shelf.
That's coming up.
And that anybody actually wants to bring 5 items. I believe it's 5 items. To the chamber, they'll get a card or a sheet of paper that has 6 businesses on it where they can get $10 off of 50. So for a donation of 5 canned or dry goods, they actually get $60 worth of coupons for downtown business. Just a great program, and we've got a pile of food that's starting to pile up there, which is nice. So goes through the weekend, but if they brought anything in Monday, we'll still give that sheet. So anybody that wants to help the food shelf with those types of items, we'll give you a reason to do it too.
And that's such a good idea to help those that are less able to provide for themselves and their families.
We would know more about that, except Brad forgot the sheet of paper in his car that explains it. When he came out of the chamber office to come here, he had to run back in to get them because he forgot them. And then he forgot them in his car when we came in here, so we still don't have them.
Those things happen. Those things happen. Well, like I say, referring back to how the changes in the community and in the region, I think about when that vote came, was at least how many years was that? 2 or 3 years ago, probably, where we were asking for people to vote in favor of doing a lodging food tax and then a general tax. And I got lots and lots of phone calls from senior citizens, and they said, we don't want to spend any more money on taxes, and we don't understand why we have to have this, and blah, blah, blah. So I explained, well, I said, with that food and lodging, you're not going to have to pay that unless you decide to leave your home and go and spend a night at the hotel, one of the local hotels, which, no, of course not, we're not going to do that. But I said, if you order a pizza, you're going to pay a little bit extra. And I said that 0.5% general tax, all of which was going to help with the building of our regional sports arena. I said, that's half a penny. Really? When the vote came, it passed, and we found that senior citizens overwhelmingly voted for that tax increase. A lot of it is just a lack of understanding of what this stands for. We found that the group that voted against it were actually real young people with little children, with lower income, of course, and not all of them, obviously, but I was so glad to see that change in attitude amongst our seniors.
It ended up passing pretty overwhelmingly, which was really a positive thing. You wouldn't feel as good if it passed like by 52 to 48 or whatever. It was in close to 67 or some percent, which is really almost considered a landslide. Right. And one thing that we think really helped was the education piece of that. As you talk to people, I mean, I had people say that every time I spend $10, it's going to cost me an extra 50 cents, or if I spend $100, it's going to cost me $5. Well, it's not. It's a 0.5%, not 5%. But it's hard to figure that 0.5% out in your mind. So, we did a lot of examples of if you went out for a sandwich and a cup of coffee and it was $12, it would actually cost you just pennies. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, the other real positive factor about the whole thing to our benefit is almost half of all of the money spent in Marshall is spent by people that don't live in Marshall.
So that's very
really
true.
Half of the proceeds that it's going to take to build and maintain that stadium are going to be paid for by people that don't live here.
That's right.
And most communities don't have the benefit of doing that.
That's right.
We did, and we took advantage of that by getting a yes vote. So basically the people said, we're going to vote for it because half of the money is coming from people that don't even live here. Right. So thank you for helping us build our arena. I mean, that's
right. It's been an interesting venture, and it's just fabulous to see all the growth that's occurring in Marshall and in the area. It's just wonderful to see.
It's fun to be part of it, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that both of you decide to stay. You'll hear from me if you change your mind. Anyway, well, I thank you so much for coming and being a part of the program today. And, of course, we'll have you back. We like to have you guys back at least once a month, so you'll have more things that you can share with us at that time.
Our pleasure.
So thank you again.
Thank you.